But here's the big kicker. That is substantially less, no matter which one you pick, than the cost of insurance. Take myself.
Right.
I have a wife and 2 children, and I spend in the state of New York somewhere like $1,200 a month on insurance. Now, I buy it myself. I don't get it through an employer. That's about $15,000 a year, and that's a lot less. Take your average person, and that's a very average family, I would say, a wife, 2 kids. Say that somebody makes $100,000 a year, you're going to pay a $1,000 fine. With no pre-existing conditions.
Take the fine.
Take the fine.
Right.
You get insurance the minute you get pre-existing conditions.
Right.
Whatever,
You
get
can
sick,
opt in whenever.
get my insurance at that point. The whole thing collapses upon itself. Now, on top of this, quickly I'll say, they don't even have an enforcement mechanism regardless of the fact you don't pay for it. Now, Avik, please jump in and tell me where I'm wrong on this. But I think we have a quote from the brief, the Obamacare legal team briefing from the Supreme Court, saying that although the act provides the IRS may not use criminal prosecutions, notices of federal tax liens, or levies on properties to collect an unpaid penalty, they may employ offsets against federal tax refunds. That's essentially the only way that they're going to be able to collect this penalty tax from you should you not buy insurance through your tax refund. I would suggest to you so people might quit overpaying on their taxes and anticipating their tax refund. The point we're making here is, how is this ever going to fulfill its own obligations? How does it live up to its own billing? It's self-destruct under its own poor writing, making repeal, I don't know, Avik, superfluous or maybe imminent.
Will, psychiatrists say that there are 5 stages of grief. You know what the first stage of grief is?
Denial?
Denial. Well, so here's the thing. When the left blew up the housing market through using Fannie and Freddie to force banks to lend money to people who weren't creditworthy, when that program blew up, did they roll back Fannie and Freddie? No, they instituted TARP.
Right.
They took over the banking system, right? When the left makes policy mistakes that blow up the economy, they don't blame themselves. They blame market failure. They blame capitalists. They blame greed. And that's what's going to happen here.
So I think that's an incredibly fair point. Game that out for me. How does that happen? The minute they see that the incentives are such that people are going to pay the penalty, a penalty they actually can't collect, as the IRS can't collect, what are they going to do? Raise the penalties?
Yeah, so what they're going to do is they're either going to raise the penalties or they're going to watch the private insurance market blow up and use that as a pretext to institute single payer. Say the private insurance market can't function, we've got to step in with our own program, because that's the only way to make sure that people don't lose coverage. And a couple centrist Republicans will go along with it, not seeing any alternative. And next thing you know, we have Medicare for all.
Won't this push people towards these exchanges? I mean, if you want to expand a little bit more on that. I mean, that's the concern I've heard.
Yeah, that's certainly true to a degree. So what will happen is that because the exchanges provide subsidized care, a lot of employers will have the incentive to drop coverage for their employees because both the workers and themselves will get a better deal. They'll pay a $2,000 fine per worker, but you'll get subsidized insurance through the federal government. So everyone wins except all the other taxpayers. And so there's almost certainly going to be a lot more of that than what the government thinks. And then what will happen is the government will use their control of the exchange to kind of tighten their control of what those exchanges
I think
can
the
offer.
enforcement side of it, they'll get stronger on too. If you remember, necessary and proper was one of the ways they tried to force this through. And they said, well, first you have to obtain that this is, you can't have one without the other. Well, now we know that they could actually advance that argument, I think, because it is constitutional, and they could expand the enforcement mechanisms. You're hoping that the bureaucracy is going to be in some way incapable of collecting money from citizens. I think that is absolutely silly, because they're going to always be able to hire more IRS agents. They've already started to do that, and they can just keep taking swings at the status piñata until they get what they want out of this, and that's what they're going to do.
I think what Will is trying to get to is the fact that you could have a lot of people who basically get off scot-free for not getting insurance. And at the end, what if you actually have fewer people insured?
Sure.
Because of Obamacare. Doesn't that take the wind at least out of the political argument for it? What they do to sort of get around it, go towards single payer, sure, but doesn't that, I think that's what you're saying, make it
They can strengthen the
collapse
mechanism.
in its own way
Why couldn't they strengthen the
when
mechanism?
fewer people are insured?
Right,
But wouldn't that actually energize people to say, some people are cheating? and we need to have enforcement.
Stronger
There are these
enforcement.
people, and from what I understand, Obamacare, it funds 19,000 new
let me say
IRS
this.
That will be
workers.
opponents' fault for not making the clear enough argument that this is not working. It's not that people are cheating, it's that people are using the system very effectively to not get insurance if they don't want it,
And that-
or to pay the fine instituted by Obamacare.
Or they don't pay the fine
No, that
at
is
all, and
key.
no one
The
comes
distinction,
after them.
the distinction you just made is so key, and maybe I'm guilty of distinguishing legal aspects of this from economic aspects, but Chief Justice John Roberts made it very clear and went out of his way to point out this is not a punitive penalty. This is not some kind of immoral act the American citizen would make, like, say, going 65 in a 55-mile-an-hour zone.
It's a choice.
But
It's
that,
a simple-
but that
it's simply a
perception
choice.
can
Right.
change when everybody's forced
Doing it.
into the system. That's the whole point here,
that's
is that the
fair.
law will
There
be
doesn't
able
have to be-
to advance further because everyone, you're going to have no choice. And now the guy who doesn't have insurance and is using this as a free rider, you're going to say, well, I'm sucked into this vortex of awful. You're coming into it